Yeah. You know what this is?
That ain't the old 76ers thing, is it? That's the old 76ers song? Yeah. That's the old Sixers.
Yeah. Woo! Welcome back to another edition of the NoStoppingKev Podcast. Dad, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good today. I'm ready to go.
Man, our Sixers are up 3-0. I'm happy. I kind of wanted, I'm going to be honest, I wanted the Wizards to get one game in Washington. They still can steal game 4 because I want them to come back to Philly so I can try to, wait outside the hotel to see if I can get a Russ autograph. I doubt it because with COVID, I doubt they're coming anywhere near fans, but it'd be worth a shot. Because actually last year, right before COVID happened, they shut everything down in mid-March?
Yeah,
the Rockets were set to come to Philly like March 30th or 31st, something like that. And I was going to get tickets to the Rockets game. I was going to wait outside the hotel before the game when they leave to get on the bus to try to get autographs. Then I was going to get down to the stadium early. Like I was going to probably take off from work that day, but COVID happened and that never happened. So maybe next year.
What you gonna go see? You gonna go see the Wizards? You think he's still gonna be in Washington?
He may or may not be, but whenever he comes to town, I try to go see him. But he might be there next year. It's kind of hard to move him because of his contract, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, he makes too much money too, don't he? He makes a lot of money.
I wouldn't say he makes too much money, but he makes a lot of money.
Okay.
Wow, what you got to say?
No. I mean, you're right. He makes a lot of money. You said it right.
Yeah. So this week I'll just say in general, it was a pretty good week for basketball. You been following any playoffs? Any series caught your attention?
It's funny because I have been trying to watch more basketball lately.
Mm-hmm.
I actually caught like the Sixers game. Was supposed to be watching the Sixers game last night, or I was watching it, much as I could. And then I was trying to, look at some of the other teams too. Milwaukee, I guess Milwaukee done swept.
They swept the Miami Heat.
The
defending Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat.
Yeah. And I guess they're going to be going against Brooklyn. I believe.
Yeah, most likely they'll be facing Brooklyn. So the Nets currently lead the Boston Celtics in their series 2-1.
Right.
I think that might end up being a gentleman's sweep, to be honest. I don't see it going 6. I think Brooklyn to come out, get their act together, and pit them away. But Jason Tatum ain't going down without a fight.
Yeah. But I guess they got the first one in Boston, what they need. Right. They that's what they got to do. They got to win on their home court, which they got to win their home court games.
Yeah. So the next game 4, will also be in Boston, and it's like who said it? A series doesn't start until someone wins on the road. I guess we're looking at that a little bit with this Brooklyn-Boston series. Somebody has to win a road game.
But what's going on with Dallas now and the Clippers?
Yo, I'm picking Dallas to win that series. Dallas is up 2-1 over the Clippers. Dallas won the first 2 games in LA.
Right.
And Clippers responded. They stole game 3 from Dallas in Dallas. So we'll see what happens in game 4. But I think Dallas is going to win game 4. Even last season, I was picking, even last season without Porzingis, Dallas was pushing the Clippers. And then Luka had the ankle injury. So then from there, it kind of struggled because his movement wasn't the same. But I think a healthy Luka, even without KP, takes down the Clippers. Clippers just aren't that guy.
I think they can beat the Clippers.
And what's alarming about the Clippers is that they have the top 2 wing defenders in the league, but they don't shut anybody down. You know, last season we watched Jamal Murray go off. You telling me you got these guys that 6'8", 6'9", strong, bigger, and they can't keep a 6'4" guard from going off for 50? Then you got Luka going off on them game after game after game. You know, and that's who you got to stop. And they can't do it. So big question marks. I guess maybe Kawhi isn't the guy he used to be. Paul George probably needs to be a number 3 guy or go back to Indiana. I don't know, but LA Paul George isn't that guy. No, maybe he should go back to OKC. I don't know.
Well, I guess you can't. Kawhi, he did drop his load the other day.
Yeah, he did. He went off. He had like 41 in game. Was that game 2 that they lost?
Yeah.
And you know, what I always go back to is last season. You remember they started pointing the finger at Doc Rivers, talking about adjustments that weren't made. And for me, I'm like, if you're out on the floor, you can kind of do your thing. And at that level, NBA guys don't need that much coaching. Y'all can kind of do this. So regardless of what adjustments weren't made in the game plan, and Doc Rivers even last year put it back to him like, guys also got to hit shots. You know, I tell my players when I'm coaching, you know, if they're going out there struggling, they're not executing the plays, they're not strapping up defensively. I tell them in the huddle all the time, I'm like, guys, I can't go out there and play for you. Like either you got to get the job done or, you know, it's going to be a long night. So I think you always got to take some element of accountability. Remember, this is the podcast where life meets basketball. Don't point the finger, people. That's never a good thing to do. You know, you got to look the man in the mirror and figure out what's what. But Dad, you called me on some BS this week. You called me on some I thought, you know, you was going to be chilling, right? But, you know, I almost wish I got to be ready for now. Whenever you call me, I just got to have the phone recording device ready to go. Give people a little sneak peek at how some things come about on the show. But you brought up the Russell Westbrook incident that happened in game 2 on Philly. For people that don't know, Russ left the game a little bit early with the ankle injury. And on his way through the tunnel to the locker room, a Philadelphia fan pours popcorn over Russ's head as he's walking through the tunnel. Russ becomes irate, has to be restrained. And, you know, it was a very disappointing sight. And, you know, ultimately this fan has been banned from Wells Fargo events and has his season ticket membership revoked. Yeah, what you got to say about that?
It was just popcorn. That's what I'm going to say about it. It was just popcorn. I'm not going to say what the person did is right. I think that he got just due for what he did do, but I also think Westbrook went off. And I think that, you know, that Westbrook went off. And I don't think that was that necessary because it was just some popcorn.
How are you going to fault somebody's response given the action that take place? Like, I can't knock a guy for the way he responds to something that's not right.
You know, it's, you know what? Sometimes fans are going to be fans. Like I said, you know what? I'm not going to say that it's right because it's against the rules.
I mean, this not the tune you were singing on Wednesday when you called me.
No, but because I still think that Westbrook, I think that he went off and took something. It was just popcorn. He didn't get hurt.
So Dad, where do you draw the line though? It's the principle. It's not the practice. As
you know,
shout out to my old roommate Mason Bryant. It's
the
principle, not the practice. So where do you draw the line? If it's not popcorn, what is it? Nachos with cheese?
You know what?
Like some pizza.
You know what? The other day at work, you know what? A guy came and threatened to beat me, threatened to hurt me, threatened me like that. You know what? I just couldn't go off and go back with him. Now, he didn't put his hands on me. He didn't do anything. But like sometimes when you have a job and some people, like, you know what? I see what bus drivers go through at times. You know, and I don't even want to. I'm not even gonna bring policemen out. Let me use the bus drivers. Let me breathe some cashiers in stores that they got to go through with some people and they can't do nothing. So you can't tell me that Westbrook just couldn't keep running through that tunnel. I had a friend
go ahead.
I have a friend that threw soda on an NBA player. You know what the player did? He looked at him and gritted at him and just kept going.
When was that?
That was in the 80s, probably.
A lot has changed since the 80s, Dan.
Yes, a lot has changed.
40 years ago.
Right. And that's why I say basketball players today are too soft. And that's why
that behavior is never acceptable though. Like,
you know what?
You should
just
never
don't hit nobody with an elbow. The elbows is out illegal.
On the court. No, that's dumb as hell. No. That's a part of the game. This is an off the court incident.
Okay.
Hold on, wait. And by definition, go ahead. Even pouring popcorn on someone's head, that's simple assault. You can press charges for that. That's beyond verbal.
Popcorn. Whoever got hurt with popcorn. Whoever got hurt with popcorn.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Is somebody in the hospital for getting hit with the popcorn?
That doesn't matter. It's the principle, Dad.
The principle
is the line. What would be too far? What couldn't a fan throw? And you be like, you know what?
He could have just kept on going.
But he didn't.
He could have. Well, then you know what?
But that's not the issue here. The issue is the fans' behavior. Because this isn't the first time we've seen something like this.
And it ain't gonna be the last time.
But hopefully we get closer and closer to these things not happening as much. And I think there's some things that can be done to, further prevent this type of behavior from happening. But I think things got to change. Like, you keep standing on the old position, like, back in the day, they used to throw nachos, pizza, popcorn, beer, all on players, and players just kept walking. Well, hell, that didn't make it right back then. It doesn't make it right now. And I think we're in a better position that players are now standing up and saying enough is enough. Because at the end of the day, the fans have too much power because they're too protected. The fact that a fan can do anything like that, they can throw a beer can at you, but you can't. Ain't no
beer can.
But that has happened before. That has happened before.
You know what? Ain't no beer can. They don't even step. Beer cans are not even allowed because of that reason.
They have bottles. They still have containers and cups that can be thrown. You still can throw stuff. The principle is throwing stuff at the players, and the fact that the players can't defend themselves makes fans be unruly. They do these things because they're like there are no consequences. So there definitely has to be greater consequences.
That fan did get consequences. He did get a consequence.
I'll get to that in a second. Because right now that's bullshit. But I wish this could never happen. But I know what would end this completely. And I love when Charles Barkley brings this up. I wish in an ideal world, right? Because we know fans wouldn't do these things if they weren't this protected. If they knew there was virtually no way for the player to get to him. But if a fan throws something, I wish they could have to, be brought on down to go one-on-one, because we know darn well nobody's pouring popcorn on Russ's head as he's walking down the street because they'll know what happened. They already know that. And my issue with this
now you talking about something outside of here. How you know what somebody won't do? You think people on the street won't touch?
When do you see that? When do you see that happen?
Why do they have bodyguards with them? Because you know what? They can be touched on the street. Somebody could touch them out.
But Dad, if they do that, what's going to happen?
Somebody could do that.
But what's going to happen if that happens? If someone tries to do something to Russ on the street, whether he has a security detail with him or not, what's going to happen? What would a bodyguard do?
What?
They going to deal with it, right?
I'm just saying, you saying ain't nobody just going to throw, you know what? You taking a whole different situation now.
Am I?
No, somebody might step to him out there.
And what's going to happen? He can deal with it, right? It can be dealt with.
It can be dealt with.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
So it's far less likely for someone to do something on the street because something can be done to stop it, or you're going to have to deal with these consequences.
Well, then, you know what? I you know what? One time a player will run up there, and you know what? Players can get hurt too.
Well, it happened before. They
can get hurt too.
I'm pitting my money on an NBA player that lifts every day. Is on a regiment. He can whoop an average Joe's ass without a doubt. Now, sure, there might be some big burly man one day, but I still put my money on NBA players 9 times out of 10 because most of the people doing this are scrawny, insecure individuals anyway.
Well, I'm not going to deny. I'm not denying that the person that did it. But you know what? There is some play. But you know what? All he had to do was just keep on going. That's all he had to do.
it. No,
that's all he had to do.
At some point,
I wish he would have went up there. I wish he would have ran up there.
Why?
I wish he would have ran up in the stand.
Why?
I wish he would have went because all he had
is
do.
Why. Not repeat yourself.
Huh?
The question is why. Why do you?
Why would I wish he went up there?
Yeah.
To show how bad he is.
But I don't even think Russ would have gone up there to fight. I don't even think he would have gone up there to fight though.
Like I said, first of all, you know what? That popcorn did not hurt him.
I don't think.
You know what? We can talk about the principles or whatever we want to talk about.
But that's the bigger issue though. That's the
legal to do some things like in the game. You're not supposed to do. It's happened but it was just popcorn. It ain't hurt him. What it hurt his pride? His hurt came from the Sixers kicking their ass. That's what he hurt from. That's what the hurt came from.
Nah,
the hurt didn't come from the popcorn. It wasn't the popcorn. Dad, it was the ass whipping that he was getting in the performance that he really was giving.
Dad, it's the
that's the reason.
It's the principle.
It wasn't the popcorn.
Dad, popcorn it's the principle. It's the principle. I think it could have been anything.
I could see that you're gonna say it was like maybe a cup, like a can or something.
It's not about getting hurt, Dad.
Ass whipping that hurt him, and he knew he wasn't gonna be able to get up in the stands.
Dad, I want you to really.
It was like it was a thing one time when they said he probably was saying hold me back. That's probably what he was saying.
It's not about someone getting hurt by an object. It's the principle of disrespect that I think players have to take a stand against so that it prompts the NBA to change. For instance, think about how many things in your childhood was acceptable growing up in the 60s, even into the 80s. You think about civil rights, right? You think about the Jim Crow South, like a lot of things were legal. And if you just keep turning the other cheek, doing nothing about it, things will never change.
You know what?
I'm not done yet, sir.
Go ahead.
I think players have to take a stand, make a big deal of these things so that they change, especially when it's a situation like, fans aren't going to do this outside of the arena when they're not protected. Like, sure, to your point, maybe there's one fan who's an outlier that may try to do something, but I would say if they do that, they're probably going to have some steep consequences, some of whom may be physical. So I don't see that happening. The problem clearly, as it pertains to fans, I'll say hurling things at players, even verbal assaults at players, usually happens when they're in a protected environment, whether that's at an arena, watching players get on bus where they know there's people to kind of step in and de-escalate things. If it was an evenly matched situation where, there can be mutual combat, fans wouldn't do this.
Like you're saying, what you're saying is true. But that, what I'm saying is that's part of the excitement of the game.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
But you know what? You can talk. Hold up now. Hold up. Let me say something now. So you saying when they trash talk to each other, that's okay?
Yes, because we're on the court.
So a fan can't talk trash to a player?
We're on the court. I think there's a
fan. You know what?
You want me to answer that question?
Go ahead.
So there's a difference between players on the court who are competing mano a mano, talking trash, right? Because we can do something about it. I can give you an elbow here. I can make a play on you. It's mutual. It's fair game, right? Both sides. Now, as for fans talking trash, yeah, fans I don't mind fans heckling, but a lot of times we see fans cross the line, like what we saw a few years ago with Russ in Utah, when he felt like fans were saying some comments that were racially motivated. I think there's a line to be crossed. So if you wouldn't, there's a way to heckle. There's heckling, and then there's disrespect, right? So if I'm at a game, there's some things that I just wouldn't say to a player because I mean they're disrespectful. These are human beings. I'm paying for my ticket to be entertained by the gameplay. My ticket is not a pass to disrespect somebody. So as much as I would love to call some players out of their name, out of human decency and decorum, I'm not going to do that. So like case in point, you know how upset I was when KD fled to Golden State, abandoned ship with Russ, right? You know, I'm a big Russ guy. When I went to a Golden State game here in Philly, I could have called Kevin Durant everything under the sun, but I was like, first of all, one, that's just not something you probably should do out of respect for an individual as a human. Two, NBA arenas are supposed to be a family environment. So if you're yelling things, you're kind of breaking rules there. Three, even though with Kevin Durant, I probably wouldn't mind calling him something out his name face to face, because I mean, if he hits me, it's a lose-lose for him because I probably get to sue for some assault. But you know what I yelled? Russell, hate you. You know, I got some laughs in the stand. So there's a way to heckle, and then there's disrespect. So I think one, throwing something at a player is disrespectful. Sometimes fans are saying things, and I love when players we saw a few years ago, even when Kevin Durant walks up to a fan and say, shut the F up and watch the game. And then you see how quiet fans get because it's like, oh shit, this just got real. Like you see this huge individual in your face that could probably kill you with his bare hands. And it puts things into perspective for you. So to your point, I think fans should be able to heckle, but they shouldn't disrespect players.
Well, you know what? That's gonna get they're gonna get disrespected sometime. That's just gonna happen.
They will, and
no matter what you believe, but you know what? That don't mean, because like you know what? Even I know time when I played in college, sometimes disrespectful things would say, but you know what? How I got it back? I did it on the court. I did it on the court and let my actions go on the court, not to lose my head and lose and go out the game. It's about staying calm and cool when you're playing.
Yeah, sure. And I think that like players
just because a player disrespect you, somebody, you know what? Like I said the other day at my job, me working, I think I was totally disrespected. Then the guy got louder. You know what? What I wanted to do really wanted to do something, and that things that made me thought in my mind. But then what gonna happen? And you know what? I could have been, because the guy wound up getting in my face. I was sitting down and I had to stand up because this dude threatening me. And like, you know what? The first thing I wanted to do. You know what? I know what I wanted to do, but you know what? I just had to remember I am in work and I got to take this today. I can't take it to the streets. I'm in my place of business.
That players are disrespected verbally all the time.
Okay, right.
By fans. I'm just saying that I think there's a line that fans need to learn. It just highlights some issues that are wrong with our society.
You know what?
And
you're right.
And until people learn certain, I'll say, values and morals, they won't really understand that, because back in the day, I'll say spectating sporting events, whether collegiate, pro, maybe even high school in some places, was a zoo. Anything goes. You got fans throwing beer on players, and players just get to walk through, and it should never be that way. That's not, appropriate or acceptable behavior.
You know what? The day, you know what? It ain't hurt nobody. You know what? It really didn't hurt anybody. If you talk about players that some of that stuff did happen, you know what? Did you hear about players really running up in the stands and fighting?
Did
you hear that back then?
Where do you draw
But
the
now
line?
these guys are so soft and so what you call? Oh, I'm disrespected. I'm disrespecting.
That
what little girls, man?
I would actually say it's tougher to stand up. Turning the cheek, I would say
it ain't. You know
it's
what?
Tougher to take a stand against something, to have a backbone, for Christ's sakes.
A backbone.
Yes.
They need to get a backbone. No, they ain't got no backbone, little babies.
Standing up for yourself.
They're standing up because of, you know what? You know what? Like I said, throwing stuff ain't right. But you know what? Like you said, you know what? Okay, you know what? Get the person that did it and do what you had to do. Don't act like you really want to run up there and fight. Just keep going.
Let's talk about the
keep going.
Let's talk. Don't keep going.
You know, he crying about people disrespecting them or saying some racial thing. You know how much racial stuff that we went through?
Yes.
Racial things that people were saying.
And that's why you stand up against it, so that,
man, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
But that
sticks and stones. So you know what? A person can say what they want to say.
You can repeat that all day. You can repeat that all day as I'm talking. But until you stand up for things, things will never change. Like if people didn't march back in the 60s, we wouldn't be voting today.
You know what?
You gotta stand up for it. But I want to talk about the repercussions of the guy. So they banned him from Wells Fargo Center events, and he lost his season ticket membership. I have a couple problems with that because I don't know how you really enforce a ban, right? So like even if a guy's name's in the system, I can have my cousin buy tickets for me. It's not like, what are the odds of his face being recognized next time he tries to go to a game? I think the ban really, the way it's probably enforced is that it's probably on the back end. So if he comes to an event, the repercussions and penalties are probably very steep. We're probably talking, because you probably get charged with like trespassing or something. So it's something I want to look into and understand, because we always hear about fans getting banned for different behaviors, but I just wonder how you enforce that when you got 25, 30,000 people coming into a place. It's not like each person at every turnstile has a list of faces on their phone that they can be like, all right. Wait, you're on my list, buddy. So I have one issue with that, because I don't know how you enforce that, but I don't think that's enough. Because think about what happens if it's the other way around. If a player does go into the stand, and the most recent event we have, at least from my lifetime, was the malice at the Palace, or the brawl at the Palace years ago when the Pacers were playing the Pistons. A fan threw an object at a player and all hell broke loose. And so I feel like you almost want to, I feel like it's inciting a riot to throw something at a player, because let's say things do get out of control and players do get into the stand, you're going to have complete mayhem. So I think the penalty and consequences need to be steeper. I think that these people who do these things should also be blasted in the media, just like players will be blasted if they do such a heinous act by assaulting a fan. I think it should work both ways, because if my neighbor throws something, I want to be able to know, like, oh, you the one that was throwing stuff at the game. You're the idiot that did that. And I think then you'll have less behavior, because when you have public shaming, that's going to be one thing to prevent people from doing things like this in the future.
You know, and when you talk about them players running the stands, didn't them players get fined for going up in the stands?
Before we go there, one last thing. I think that the guy who, the people that do these things should also be fined. You know, I was talking to my mom about it. I was like, they should have to pay at least $1,000. Our mom was like, no, if you got season tickets, he probably can afford a little bit more than that, at least triple it. But whatever it is, I think for different degrees of defenses, there should, or different degrees of offenses, there should be some type of financial penalty that fans have to pay, and let the player who the act was done against choose what charity that money goes to. That's one thing that I think add to. So hurt the pockets, do the public shaming, and don't let them back. Make it super steep, and then that will also help prevent some of these. But your question to me is about weren't the players fined and suspended? Yes, absolutely. Right.
Okay.
Right. But so that I would say that penalty, especially when you're looking at the malice and the palace, is far steeper than being banned from the Wells Fargo Center. Like shit, all he gotta do is go to. If he want to see the Sixers, he can drive up to New York City, go to Madison Square Garden, or he can go down to DC, to Capital One Center. So when you mention a player getting fined for walking up into the stands, right? You know what I compare that to?
What?
Back in the 60s when you had sit-ins, you had Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. Doing that, we knew what? You would be arrested, probably fined, right?
Kevin.
So it's worth paying the price to move a cause forward.
Kevin. See, now when you talk about Rosa Parks and you bring them in there, that's a different situation. It's a totally different thing. Though. Now you could say, you know what, we won this and we did this. We talking about a sporting event.
That
we're not talking about,
and that's the problem. That people think that at a sporting event that these principles don't matter anymore, or that it's
ain't nobody saying the principle.
That's what Kevin, you're saying. That's what you're saying. You're saying that you're saying a bus. Rosa Parks is different.
Kevin,
on a basketball court. You're saying on a basketball arena, you can do these things that you can't do elsewhere. That's what you're telling me.
No. What I'm saying is, you know what? He didn't need to go up there and do that. It's people in position to handle that. It's people getting paid to do their job to handle that. The same people that did their job not to let him go up there. You got people doing their job. His job was not to go up there and do anything. His job was, all he had to do was keep going.
You assume people do their job.
Assume that you're not supposed to go in the stands.
Think about it. If Isaiah Thomas didn't go into the stands, would we know that he was being subjected to that type of rhetoric? Would we be aware that even going up to a fan, having a calm conversation to him man to man would actually make a fan calm down and realize, like, hey, maybe I am over the line? We wouldn't know. So I think Isaiah Thomas would probably tell you probably was worth the $25,000 he was fined for that.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like I said. You know what? As players today, and that what make me think, like, you know what? All they had to do, like you saying, you think that's gonna stop the next person from really throwing some popcorn? Do you think this incident gonna stop that?
I think that if from this event steeper penalties are in place, yes, it's another deterrent to keep people from doing this type of thing.
Kevin, people kill people every day. And they know that they can go to jail for life. For life. They can spend the rest of their life in it, but you think, do they care about still taking a person's life?
Those are people that clearly aren't. To take someone's life, there's so many.
No, I'm just saying. You saying severe penalty. What more penalty can you get in your life?
And so yes, there's people that continue to do that. You have people that go to jail and go back to jail. There's so many different layers to that issue.
So you really think that?
But I think that in a setting like this, think about the different arenas that murder's in versus simple assault, and think about the difference in the individual on average. Like, I would say the mental state of someone that's willing to murder someone is a lot different than the mental state of, your season ticket holder.
No, I was just saying.
I'm getting to where you're going.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
So, to your point, I think that, sure, increasing the penalties won't. I'm not saying that you'll never have another popcorn throwing, another spitting incident again, because you're going to have some people that just lose their mind, forget where they're at, make poor decisions. But I do think that it'll make people think twice.
It might make some people think twice.
It'll make most people think
twice. It'll make some people think twice. But everybody ain't doing it anyway.
I just think that it'll be fewer and further between that you'll have repeat incidents.
I really don't. I don't think so.
Let's see. So let's
some
see
people,
if they
some people gonna still go there, get drunk, and do dumb things. It still is. And like when you talk about penalty, what penalty can you really set to a person? Like what? Like you just said, that guy. He may not even really care about losing that season ticket because like you said, how can they really tell if he can get if he don't get back in there, don't sneak in the stadium? Well, or like you said, he go to New York or he go to New Jersey or he go to DC.
Again, I think that's why you increase the penalty. Like I love the public.
What penalty can you increase?
I love the public shaming strategy where you put their face on the news. Let us know who these people are, because I think when you're put in that situation, that alone will eat you up. And and it helps in the long run.
It may eat somebody. Somebody might be proud of that. You don't know what some people think. Somebody might be proud that they may see it a different way than you see it.
Yeah, but the public perception, sure, that person might see it whatever way, but ultimately the public is already saying like, hey, what that guy did. The masses are already saying like what he did was unacceptable. The masses are already saying like we want to know who this guy is. We should know. So
who's saying that?
The masses.
I
think that overall, like, sure, you'll have people who like that's their proud moment. But I would say your rational individual doesn't want such a negative connotation associated with their name. Because think about it, depending on where you work, if that ends up bringing turmoil to your job, people showing up at your job, they're going to have to let you go because they're not going to want people rolling up in there. So it trickles down and has a deeper effect. So I think from that standpoint, it'll make your rational human being think twice before engaging in that type of behavior. But spending a guy 50 games, he's losing money. You're basically out of a job for a while. Like that penalty is far steeper. So to my point again, thank you for bringing that up. There isn't a balance in power. There isn't fair game when it comes to this.
But you know what? The fair game, like I'm saying, like the guy, punish anybody that throw anything. I'm not saying don't punish him for doing it.
The punishment isn't.
I'm not saying don't. I'm not. See, one thing I'm saying, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be punished or he shouldn't have nothing. And you know what? You can fine him and do all that. I don't have no problem with that. What I'm saying is, only thing Westbrook had to do was keep going. Let that happen. Let the ushers that's there, let them escort that guy and do it that way. Handle it the way that they handle it. Then take a season ticket. But as a player, you don't have to go back. He could have kept going. Like I'm not saying that like I said, he probably was more hot because they was losing. But like I'm saying, he got incident when when people heckling you, that goes along with the game. You know what Joe Embiid last night said? You know what? They asked him about the fans being there. And you know what? He said he liked that when the fans talking them trash and all that kind of stuff. You know what? That's a motivate. You know what? I loved it. I loved it when I played.
I did too, but Dad, I think you're also thinking about Russ going up there and fighting. I don't think that necessarily was his motive. Do you remember a few years ago when Isaiah Thomas was a member of the Washington Wizards and he went into the stands? Do you recall this event or no?
Isaiah Thomas was with Washington?
Isaiah Thomas, yes. He was playing with the Wizards.
I never knew he played with the Wizards.
And at the Sixers game in the second half, if a player missed 2 consecutive free throws, everybody with the ticket the next day can get free Frosties from Wendy's, right? So he's at the free throw line. I guess he missed the first. He made the second, but there were 2 guys in the stands that, because they were upset, they weren't getting their Frosties off of Isaiah Thomas. They began giving him the middle finger, saying F you, might have called him the B word. So when he was subbed out of the game, calmly walked up into the stands, told the guys like, yo, that's not cool. Like you're crossing the line. That's very disrespectful. And even when security came over, he was like, no, I'm fine. Like he's not going up there to fight, but it's the kind of educate people when they're out of line and crossing the line. Because I understand you're there, you're having a few beers, you want to have a good time, but some people, whether it's just ignorance or what, they just don't understand that. And I think something else that's alarming is a lot of times when we're seeing these egregious acts, is usually white men against our black athletes. So there's so many different layers to this, because it's like you do this because you think it's something that you can get away with and do it. It's just not acceptable. And I think that players should continue pushing back. You say he should just walk through the tunnel. Well, if he does that and he acts like it's no big deal, then you feel like then on the other side of that, there isn't really pressure on the league or whoever to increase the level of repercussions for these acts that will ultimately help prevent them from happening in the future. I think that's why you have to make a big deal out of it.
I'm still, you know what, the way, you know what, like I'm saying, it still could have been handled. You know, he didn't have to come back, or, you know, like players start. That's what ushers and stuff got their jobs for. You know, like a player should play the game. Like, yes, you're going to have some idiots do things. And I'm going to call people idiots to do things. You know, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. But that don't mean that you got to be wrong and go do it. No, I don't recall the thing with Isaiah Thompson. I don't recall it.
Isaiah Thomas.
Okay. All right. We talking about Zeke. Okay, let me say the Zeke.
No, we're not talking about Zeke, Dad. We're talking
you talking about the one that played for Boston.
Yes.
Okay. That's who I was thinking about. That's right. It is another Isaiah Thompson. That's right. Thomas. Right. Oh no, I didn't recall that incident.
So you never answered my question earlier.
What? What's your question?
Where do you draw the line for what fans can throw and what fans can say? Or do you have a line?
Fans shouldn't throw anything. They shouldn't throw anything.
Okay.
Now, the ones that do and they caught, they should be punished. Okay, I agree with that 100%.
What about?
I don't agree with a player acting like Westbrook acted. I don't think that he had to act like that.
What about verbally? Do you think there's a line that players fans?
No.
So you're okay with fans calling players the N-word, saying things about their spouses or kids? Do you think that is okay for fans?
Well, you know what? See, like I'm saying, my response, because you know what? I played with all that. You know, and you know what? And me being black and playing in the West Virginia Conference, and like some of the gyms that we used to go to, and then by me being who I was on at my school, I heard all that. But you know what? I can laugh, and you know what? Because it not hurt me. You know what? I come there to play basketball. I ain't worried about what you call me. Anything that's gonna fuel me up. You know, I love when they called me that. You know what? I loved it. And I don't think that, you know what, I wouldn't cry because they called me a nigger.
Well, I think too, we talked about this before in recent events that have happened between the police and the black community. But I think that in your time, you almost could expect that you would be called that, and depending on where you were. And so it's something that you expected, was something that was more common. That's not something that people commonly say in public settings today. So I think, you know, one in particular, to being called the N-word during a game, I think players, fans, I think it's more likely that you're going to get pushback today. And then also, just if a fan is going to say racially insensitive things, I almost expect people in the stands to check them, or they should. You know, if our society is actually taking steps forward, you would think that there would be some self-policing going on. I think that I disagree with you. I think there should be a line on what fans can say, and there are just, and it is there are punitive things. So you remember, years ago here in Philly, you had a guy sitting courtside stand up and give Russ the double bird, right? And that fan was escorted out the arena. I don't know if there were any other penalties, but you also can't verbally berate players, because if you do that, you'll also be escorted out. So there's a line. I think that, again, there's a difference between heckling and being disrespectful. So I think that there has to be, you just got to learn human decency, I think, at the end of the day. And if you don't, I think that they should be dealt with, especially in certain settings.
Even with you saying what you saying, and all about this, like being like heckling and all like this, man, this stuff was back then, this never bothered the basketball players. It never bothered them. And it's this generation of babies of soft behind people, man. And it really get me. You worried about what fans think? Stay on the court and play your game. Worried about somebody sticking their fingers up at you or something like that. Man, you know what? First of all, you shouldn't even be paying attention to that. Your focus should be on the game, in the game. Not worrying about what a fan doing in the stands.
When you call our generation soft, you want me to tell you what you sound like?
Tell me.
So I'm going to take it outside of basketball. When you look at different events that have happened, right? For instance, let's take in Philly, the Christopher Columbus statues, this really happened all across America, where there was calls to take down Christopher Columbus statues because not only did he steal land, but his people bought disease. They straight up committed genocide against Native Americans. They raped women and children.
You know what?
Right. So hold on. Go ahead. A lot of people were telling me, or, the opposition to taking down these statues were, oh, this generation is too soft. You got to be politically correct. This, that, and the third. It's like, actually, we're not soft at all, because it takes a lot of courage and strength to stand up to the norm, to what has been right for quote unquote right, or what has been quote unquote acceptable for generations and generations and generations. It's harder to go the road less traveled. So when you say, oh, this generation of players are soft, it's like,
I'm talking about players. I'm not talking about Christopher Columbus statues. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about them politics. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about basketball. I'm talking about sports. I'm talking about the game.
But Dad, when
I'm not talking about it. You know what? I can go other places and talk about.
I'm telling you what that logic parallels here.
You know what? But I'm saying, you know what? I could take it to somewhere else. I could take it to like being in the streets of shootings and killings. You know what? Instead of fighting with hands or stuff like that, I could take it there too.
Take it there.
I don't even want to go in there. But when I talk about that, when I talk about being soft, like I'm just talking about right on the basketball court, and that's where I'm trying to stay with it. If you want to talk about, yes, I don't have nothing against people taking a stand. I have nothing to do with people taking a stand. What I'm saying, but if you know what, my job
tell players they should just keep walking. You're telling them to shut up and dribble. That's what you sound like.
I'm telling them to play the game. What? Yeah, Kevin, because somebody hollering in the stand. That's what people do in the stands. That's what they do.
But
that's what. You know what?
Players
then you know what? You know what? Then you know what? Do like it did. Do when they had COVID. Don't let no fans in the game.
Nobody wants that.
Don't let fans in the game.
Now you're being unreasonable.
Oh no, because you worried about them hollering or somebody's gonna call somebody a name, and they don't want that.
There's a way to do things. You even taught me when to, where to, how to, what to, all that. That same thing applies to this arena. So I don't think that players should just take it. If something's unacceptable, you let it be known that that's not acceptable. Like, what do you think should be the penalty for players or for fans that, throw things at players? What do you think should be the penalty?
I think they should be ejected. I think they definitely should be ejected from the arena.
Is that all? Just taken out for that day? Do you think they should be allowed back?
If whatever thing, what I think?
Yes.
What do I think?
I'm asking you, what do you think the penalty should be for, let's say, the popcorn guy? What do you think his penalty should be?
They set his penalty. They gave him a penalty.
All right, let me ask you it this way. So they revoked his season tickets, right? He's no longer a season ticket holder, and he's not allowed back at the arena. Do you think that's a steep enough penalty for what he did?
What, you want him to go to jail?
That's my question is, do you think
I think that's steep enough.
You think
I think it's steep enough.
So you think he should, you think even despite him being able to probably still weasel his way back in there, do you think he should be allowed to go to NBA games in other cities?
Then he got to travel. He still got to pay a price.
I mean, to go to DC isn't that far.
Well, then, that's what he got to do because he messed up his opportunity. That's still part of the punishment. Then he got to go to DC.
If you can afford season tickets, there's probably not much for you to travel to DC.
See, you know what? Just like I said, you know what? I'm just not there because, like I said, from being a player, from being a fan, and did all that, and like I said, to me, if I know that y'all want to look at the principle, or you want to say it's the principle of the thing. You know what? Some things are done in fun. Some things are really just done in fun.
Yeah, but
popcorn never hurt nobody, man.
But Dad,
it never hurt nobody. It ain't really hurt It ain't really hurt him, man.
See that?
It ain't hurt nobody. Okay, the guy can't go. You know what? He can't get season tickets no more. He can't go to the game no more. Okay, that's a penalty. That's okay. Now, if he would have hurt him, or it would have sent Westbrook to the hospital or something, then yeah, I think something. Yeah, I believe something. If he do something that's gonna really injure him or hurt him, yeah, I think the penalty should be more severe.
But Dad, fun for who though? Fun at whose expense? Fun at whose expense?
You know what?
So how about you come to my house and I just pour popcorn?
Now you talk about come to your house. We are talking about at a game. But it ain't gonna happen if I come to your house.
I could, and you would actually be able to defend yourself.
You know what?
If you did.
You know what?
You would actually be able to defend yourself.
People go to game. Like I said.
But again, they go there with this misconception of what they can do.
You know what?
They go there thinking that their ticket says I can do whatever the hell I want during these 28 minutes.
You act like
action.
See what you doing is this don't happen every day. That don't happen at every game. It don't happen you know what?
Well,
did that happen somewhere else?
How about this? That the same night at a New York Knicks game, a fan spits on Trae Young. Now, I probably would draw the line on spitting. Spitting like that. I don't see what. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with spitting on somebody. I mean, you know what? I don't even somebody.
What?
When has spit killed somebody?
Somebody spit on you, spit in your face or something like that. No, I don't agree with that.
It might have hit his jersey, or it might have.
Spitting period. I don't even care. Spitting period. I don't agree with that.
Young said he didn't feel it. It's still unacceptable. But let's just say it didn't even touch him. They spin in his direction.
Like I said, I don't agree with spitting. I don't agree with that. I think that, I mean, for even spitting or some shit, I really think that he should be out of there. I mean,
what do you think his should be?
Then, you know what? Now, I will say, if somebody spit on a player, you know what? Then I wouldn't have no problem with the player running off the court or doing anything. I wouldn't even fine the player for doing something like that.
What do you think the fans' penalty should be?
What, for spit?
Yeah. Do you think he should have the same penalty as Popcorn Guy?
I think his penalty should be worse.
What do you think his penalty should be? If it was
Kevin, I'm not a person that's gonna set a penalty.
If you were making the decision,
but you know what? The thing is, I'm not making the decision.
But Dad, what would you like to see happen to that guy? What do you think would be fitting? What do you think would be fitting?
His ass should get kicked. That's what I think for him.
By who?
I don't know by who. His ass just need to be kicked, and you know, it just need to be kicked.
I think it should be. So I definitely don't agree. Well, I actually don't agree with his actions. I think that, you know, like Popcorn Guy, I think this guy should also be banned. His face should be everywhere. We should know exactly who he is. I think that, and to my point about Popcorn, it's like if you just let these things go, then they only compound, and over time they get
I never said get it right. I never said let it go.
Well, I never said let it go. Russ, he should just keep off.
Russ. You know what? Let the authorities handle it.
But Dad, if you don't, in our system, you got to put pressure on the authorities to do things. So, like, and I'm never gonna fault a guy for reacting the way they react. It's like if someone calls you the N-word and someone calls me the N-word, we might react differently. I don't think you should fault me for becoming irate. So I just think that players should continue, like, however someone's responding. That's beyond me. I don't.
So I think it's about let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question now. A cop pull you over, say some wrong things or some racial things to you, and then gonna tell you to do something. You gonna get smart with him?
Me personally, no.
Would you handle it then, or would you wait till you ride off and then be able to handle the situation?
Are you done asking your question? Because I can give you an answer.
Go ahead.
So me personally, I know the situation as it pertains to Black people and the police. I know how a lot of those instances go down. So me personally, I'm going to keep my cool, deal with it, and just try to not let the situation escalate, right? But that doesn't happen in every case. And so I'm not going to be mad at a guy for, like, I can say I don't agree with the way he reacted. I can say, hey, him reacting that way wasn't in his best interest. But at the end of the day, who really caused the problem? And in your example, that would be the police officer. And you know what? That's all you said. Only thing that I said, Russ, all he had to do was keep on going, didn't handle it or talked about it or made sure that they handled that and handled that guy. Again, I think he could. You just said it. All he had to do was keep his cool. How you know he didn't want to do like Isaiah Thomas and just go have a conversation with the guy? Okay. I think we're assuming he's going up there to be violent, whereas he could have just been going to have a conversation with the man, even if it was in a strong tone, to let him know that behavior wasn't acceptable. You know what? But see, you know what? Him going up there could have initiated a riot, as you say. Okay. It could have initiated something of him going up in the stands. Okay, so you know what? Because a person that come up in the stand could think that he coming up there to do something to him. So if we're saying inciting a riot, it's not the person who goes into the stands. It's the person who threw that event initiated the riot, if we want to be technical about it. But you know what? If he, like, the person, you know what? He first of all, he should have just kept going. In no way or nothing. He could have kept going. That guy still could have been ejected. His season ticket still could have been revoked. Without all that, it ain't had to go to all that way. Two wrongs don't make a right, man. Okay.
And he wasn't right for leaving. You know what? If he'd have probably went, let me ask you another question. Did Isaiah Thomas get fined for going up in the stands?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So therefore, it ain't right. That's two wrongs. Don't make it right.
Well, the NBA.
Two wrongs don't make it right.
Probably, the NBA has policies about players going into the stands, probably because of what has happened in the past. So whether you go up there with good intentions or bad, you're probably going to get a fine because the NBA doesn't want players going up there. But to the player's point, there needs to be a balance to where fans can face an equally a penalty that's of equal standard, I think. But we'll agree to disagree on whether or not Russ should have gone back or just kept, walking. We can agree to disagree on that, and I'm fine with that. I think this just also highlights, sometimes where there's some generational differences between, you and I per se on different issues. And again, this is one that where life kind of meets basketball. But, for me, if I was up there with Popcorn Man in the stands, I probably would have had my Westbrook jersey on, even though I would have been rooting for the Sixers to win ultimately. Man, I might have been ready to sucker punch dude like, yo, what you doing? Because I know my man Russ probably would have came through, paid my fees, baby, holding him down. Yay, big whoop whoop. No, I'm just
Remember when we was remember when me and you went to an Eagles game?
Yeah.
And it was some Redskins fans up there?
Yeah, it was a Redskins fan sitting right in front of us. And he was celebrating, talking his trash.
Yeah.
To the Eagles fan, a couple rows up behind us. And then Redskins fan started looking back, got ready to go up there, and we told him don't go up there. But again, that's fan on.
I don't think he was getting ready to go up there. He got worried about them getting ready to come down there.
No, he started getting ready to walk up the steps. And you told him, like, no, don't do that. You stuck your hand out like, don't go up there. But again, that's fan on fan violence. Kind of fair game there. Y'all would face the same penalties. Only thing the Redskins fan is just outnumbered. But, like, it's still.
So, you just made a quote of saying you would have been in the game with your Westbrook jersey on. So what would you said or done to the Popcorn Man?
Man, I jokingly I said I probably would have been ready to rock him, just like what you doing. But I think realistically though, like someone should have snatched the popcorn from. I don't know if they did, but someone should have checked that guy, because I think when we get to a point where we can kind of police each other, I think that makes this society better. Like, I know if one of my friends were to try to do that, or someone I was with tried to throw popcorn on a player, throw a drink at a player, I would have been like, chill out, bro. Like, we're not doing that here. My buddy Earl, sometimes I'm joking. Earl let me know when I'm going too far. Then I calm back. But I think you got to kind of have that in society, because that prevents bigger issues. And I think ultimately it helps us move forward. But I'll let you got any last words for today before we get out of here?
I just want to say like this, and I guess like you could say it's generation difference and all like that, in a way that like we do see some things different. But like I just can't see nothing wrong, because my experience and like what I'm saying with playing basketball and playing in the stands and players and fans saying certain things, that excited me. It ain't make me want to think about fighting a fan. And like, what's so crazy? I remember playing when I used to play on a semi-pro team. I remember throwing water on some fans in the stands. Like sometimes I don't know. Like I just don't recently. I understand like the rule, and I'm gonna leave it. We talking about this. You know what? Like one thing that I do want to say on the air, and like or I do want to say it, and I tell you all the time. I'm so grateful to have a son like you. I'm so grateful to have my kids. And y'all been the biggest thing in my life, and I'm just so proud. And I just want everybody to know I'm so proud of this man over here for helping me grow more, even though I'm older. I just want to say that on the air.
Appreciate it. And I thank you too, because I think ultimately children are a reflection of their parents. I think I reflect more of the good sides of you. But
that's what I want you to reflect, the good sides of me.
So I think you definitely did your job well as a father.
But thank you very much.
We got to get ready to get up out of here. Dad, I enjoyed this conversation, even though, sometimes, and this is something I talk about with, some people that I work with, that we have different views on different things. In life, you got to be okay disagreeing with people on certain topics. Just because you don't agree doesn't mean you have to have a nuclear war, right? But I think that as you have more discussions, and you've shared this offline, that, the more we talk about even different issues in society, the more it opens your mind to it. Like for me, I can't imagine a society where, there isn't any police forces working. But I think the more I talk to people about it, the more you kind of see a different perspective. And I personally don't think we'll ever see a situation, at least here in America, where there isn't a police force, right? But I think that the more you're open to hearing the ideas and the vision, the more that you can understand where a person is coming from. And then you be able to see things from through a different lens to better understand it. And then from there, you can kind of work together to kind of meet in the middle, or to find a solution that is better for the greater good. But yeah, I know I kind of went a little off on a tangent there, but people, thank you for tuning into the podcast where life meets basketball, the No Stopping Kev podcast. Share this show with a friend. And if you don't already, make sure you follow the Instagram. People is growing each and every day. Shout out to the person, my homie Liz, that's running our social media page. She's doing a fantastic job. Much appreciated. And so make sure you follow us at the No Stopping Kev Show on Instagram and Facebook. And until next time, people, will see you same time, same place next week. Peace.
Peace and God bless.